Okay, so good morning everybody and welcome to the first of our Wednesday wisdom sessions. The aim of these sessions is to give you an overview of a typical and topical HR issue and what our thoughts are and our potential solutions. And we will be running the sessions on a weekly basis for at least the next 9 weeks, and now that you've registered, you're welcome to join in on any of the sessions. Hopefully you can join us every week, but obviously you don't have to join in every week if you've got other commitments, but just save the link and join us whenever you can. Before we get started, just want to run through a couple of housekeeping things for you. So I'm happy for you to leave your microphones on throughout the presentation if you want to, obviously provided that there's no entertaining barking dogs or screaming kids or anything that causes background noise. We have got the power to mute you if we do need to. So if we do find there's some background noise going on, we will obviously hit that mute button for you. I am actually going to record this section of the presentation, so the first bit of me talking and the advice, I will be recording that, but it won't show anyone else's image, it'll just show our presentation and it'll show me talking. And then when we come to the question and answer session, I will turn off the video recording because obviously I don't want everyone else to end up being on the video. This is just so we can share the sessions with people who haven't been able to attend. We'll stick it up on our YouTube channel, so if you've got any you want to look back on it later on or anything like that, then you can do. I've got Lisa on the session with me today, and Lisa's going to be keeping an eye out on the chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to fire them across to Lisa on that chat. You can either do it privately or you can do it on the group chat, and we'll answer them once we finish the main presentation. Your chat button, for those of you that are not familiar with Zoom, is usually just on the bottom of your screen somewhere. Just a quick point to note, these sessions aren't designed to give you full HR support. So if you have got specific questions about a case that you're dealing with that you need help with, then it might be better just to obviously email us or call us after the event. We obviously can't comment on specific cases and wouldn't want to breach anyone's confidentiality. So today I'm going to focus on the two main questions that we are being asked at the moment about the recent updates to the coronavirus job retention scheme, and also give you a little bit more information about returning employees to the workplace. So I'm going to begin now. So the first question we're dealing with a lot is around the closure of the scheme for new entrants. So today is actually the cut-off point for you to furlough employees if they haven't been furloughed before. So this is because the scheme will close to any new entrants on the 1st of July. But to be eligible for the scheme, your employees have to have been on furlough for a minimum of 21 calendar days, that's 3 weeks. So if they're on furlough on today's date, the 10th of June, day 21 will be the 30th of June because the 10th obviously counts as day 1. Any employees who you haven't furloughed before and are not on furlough at today's date, they cannot be furloughed after today. Well, they can be furloughed, but you won't be able to claim the retention scheme for them, the grant. If you do find yourself in a position after today where you need to reduce those staff levels for the employees who haven't been on furlough before, then your options are going to be limited to things like layoff, maybe contract variations, or maybe you're starting to look at redundancies. So please do ask us if you aren't sure about what to do. After today, you can still furlough employees who have been furloughed previously. So if you have already claimed the coronavirus job retention scheme grant for them, you can re-furlough them. That's because they're not new entrants to the scheme. The details are already registered there in your previous HMRC submissions. There was also a quick update to the scheme yesterday that Lisa very kindly notified me about this morning, and that is that anyone who is returning from statutory leave, so statutory maternity, paternity, adoption, shared parental or parental bereavement leave, they can still be furloughed after today. They can still be put on that scheme because obviously you wouldn't have been able to put them on it previously, but that is on the condition that you have previously furloughed other employees. So you must have already made a claim on the scheme for some of your employees to be able to do that. We're not sure yet how the dynamics of that claim will work, and obviously we'll update you as soon as we get more information on that. Obviously we'll address questions on this shortly, so do get them on the chat if you've got any questions with regards to the closure of the scheme. The second thing we get asked a lot about at the moment is the flexible furlough scheme. So this is the part-time working during furlough. Now this is coming into play on the 1st of July. And I think there was a lot of confusion around this because in his speech, the Chancellor gave an example of somebody who returned to work for 2 days a week and remained on furlough for 3 days. So a lot of people have been saying, do we have to do it that way? Does it have to be full days? How does this work? That was just an example of what he said. So you can bring employees back to work part-time in one of two ways. So you can either do what the Chancellor suggested and bring them back for full days. You'd pay them for 100% of those days, so 100% of their salary for those days they work. And for the remaining days, they are then classed as being on furlough, and you would pay them their 80%, or if you've been topping their wage off, obviously the 100%, and you would claim back those furlough days only through the coronavirus job retention scheme. Or you can bring them back on reduced hours. So if you wanted to bring, say you've got somebody who works full time normally, they work a 37.5-hour week for you, you want them back, say 4 hours a day, for example, across 5 days. So they're coming back for 20 hours essentially. So you would pay them 100% of their salary for that 20 hours, and then they would remain on furlough for the remainder of the 17.5 hours. And again, you would pay them accordingly for those 17.5 hours. So that would either be the 80%, or if you're topping it up to 100%, and you would claim those 17.5 hours back through the scheme. Whatever it is that you decide to do about bringing your employees back, it's really important to make sure that you're fair in your approach. So you need to be thinking about what you can afford, who needs to be in work first, and how many hours you actually need them for. And I would suggest that you document that decision-making process somewhere so that you can refer back to it if you need to. You know, if somebody does question this, and we're anticipating there will probably be a lot of tribunal claims coming up on the back of the furlough scheme and the redundancies that will take place. So just document everything that you do, every decision that you make a note of it somewhere, even if it's just scribbled on a piece of paper that you stick in the back of your diary for the moment. At least then you can show why you've made the choices that you've made. And obviously carrying out return to work meetings with all your employees. We talked about this a lot on the return to work seminar we did a couple of weeks ago. And remember, you need to get your COVID-19 risk assessment in place before you can reopen your workplace. Or if you haven't already got one, you do need to get one sorted out. It doesn't need to be a complicated process. You just need to show that you've analysed the risks and put things in place to obviously resolve them. If you need help with that, I do know a good health and safety guy that can help you out. So the last section we just wanted to talk about before we throw it open for questions is the concept of this return to work. So how do we return staff to work? What sort of things do you need to be covering in your return to work meetings? So we've actually come up with a couple of handy forms. One is kind of returning to the office from working from home, and one is returning from furlough, because obviously there are different considerations there for each of those people. And if you do want copies of either of those forms, you know, do give us a shout or stick it on the chat or email us later on. I'm sure we'll be happy to provide those for you. But just a few key points that you need to be covering in your return to work meetings. So firstly, how do the employees feel about returning? They might be really anxious about it, or they might be raring to go. You know, find out how they feel about it. And then you need to be talking to them about the safety measures you've got in place. So once you've done your COVID-19 risk assessment, you need to share that with the staff and tell them what you're doing to protect them and keep them safe, and ask them if they've got any questions about the safety measures and what they need to do. Find out as well if they've got any issues with things like travel or childcare. So you need to probably work with them on this. So even though the temptation might be to say, well, it's not my problem how you get to work, you know, they might not want to get on a bus. You know, people are scared of being interacting with other people, so they might not want to climb on that bus to work every day that they used to get on. You know, they might have childcare problems because their children's school may not yet be open. A lot of the schools seem to be changing the dates that they're opening at the moment, so you know, just be aware of those issues. And one of the good things I think to ask them about, just to encourage them to think positively about their experiences. What have they missed about being in the office or being at work? What have they missed about it? So get them to sort of look at the positive side of returning. And equally, what have they enjoyed about being on furlough or working from home? You know, where are they at with their mindset with that? What are the pros and cons of both sides of it? And how is their mental health? You know, are they okay? Do they feel depressed, anxious? Have they had a bereavement that they're struggling to deal with? I mean, hopefully you'll know some of these things if you've been keeping in touch with them anyway. But find out how they are, and find out how they will tell you if everything isn't okay. So some people just really feel uncomfortable opening up. Ask them the question, you know, if you're not all right, if things aren't going well, how will you let me know? Will you tell me? Will you show me? You know, how will you do that? Everyone handles it differently, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Use the opportunity to talk to them about any changes that you might need to make to their workload or their working patterns. You know, are they coming back on a phased return? Are they working part-time hours? Has anything changed while they've been off? Have you changed any of the working practices? Talk to them about that. And also go through the plans for the future. So they might be really worried about the future of the business. You know, am I going to have a job to come back to? Is it going to last? What's going to happen? Share those things with them. Share the plans for the future. What does the business look like? What will their workload look like? You know, what's your plan for returning everybody to full operations? Obviously, don't breach anyone's confidentiality, but you can talk about it in generic terms. And a couple of last things. So what are the arrangements for holidays? So can they take holidays in the remainder of this year? What are your rules on that? Are there limits as to how many they can take? What do they need to do to book those holidays? Have you changed the booking process? You know, we talked last time about if you have a first come first served holiday booking process, it might not be appropriate now because you're going to get a lot of people wanting to book time off, and it'll mean some people just don't get their holidays. So tell them what the process is. And also, you know, you might have come across some concerns with their performance or their conduct while they've been away. You might have noticed things haven't gone well, things that just aren't right. So use the opportunity to just talk to them about it. We're not suggesting you go in there heavy-handed and start disciplining them and slapping warnings on them, but just use the opportunity to talk to them and explain what you've noticed and come up with a resolution to put it right. And you might need to follow up this return to work meeting with a catch up in a couple of weeks' time, especially if some of you guys are really anxious about coming back. It's worth just keep touching base with them just to make sure that everything's still okay. Just remember that everybody's experience over the past 3 months has been completely different. So what I've gone through is totally different to what Lisa's gone through, and that's totally different again to what Sally might have gone through, and totally different again to what Nicola might have gone through. So just really take the time to understand what your employees need, and I think you'll find then that returning them back to the workplace will hopefully be relatively seamless. So that's pretty much it for me now. I'm just going to pause the video recording and then we're going to go over to Lisa to have deal with some of the questions that might have come up. So just bear with me a second.